Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So we were discussing the sifat, and in the conversation of the sifat we came across huruf musta'liya, or the sifa of isti'la. And the sifa of isti'la means that you have to recite the letter full mouth and not empty mouth. After we finished that conversation, we talked about the acronym for isti'la. Anyone remember what is the acronym? What was that? You can say it louder. Correct. That's the acronym you have to memorize. So when you know those letters, you know which ones should always have the attribute of isti'la. And then we break up all letters into the isti'la letters and then istifal letters, which means they don't have that full mouth aspect to them. However, there are three letters in the istifal section that are sometimes istifal and sometimes isti'la. Anyone remember what these three letters are? Alif lam ra, like the beginning of some surahs, alif lam ra, right? So alif we finished. Essentially the rule of alif was, if the letter before it is a full mouth letter, then alif will also be full mouth, such as khalidina. And if the letter before it is an empty mouth, then alif will be empty mouth, such as ba or ta or anything like that. That extra pull, that mud, is going to be empty mouth. Then we discussed lam, and specifically the lam in the word Allah. That lam, in two situations, it'll be, well, there was more detail to it, but if the preceding haraka is a fatha or dhamma, then it's going to be full mouth, Allah or ullah, whatever comes before it. And if it's a kasra, then it's going to be empty mouth. Illa, not law. So law is a full mouth sound for lam. It becomes la when there's a kasra. And this is only in the word, in the name Allah. Now we're left with the last one, which is ra. So, and the ra has the most rulings in it. So that is what we are going to discuss today, inshallah. The rules of ra. Yeah. So Shaykh mentions three scenarios. Number one is going to be those instances where ra is full mouth. I should say, yeah, where ra is recited full mouth. Or I'll just say with tafkhim. That slash is just with tafkhim. This was a term that we said means full mouth. Second grouping. So there's three groups where ra is recited, and what is the word that we used for empty mouth? Who remembers what is the opposite of tafkhim? Tarqiq. So second grouping where ra is recited with tarqiq. The third grouping, what can be left, is where ra can be recited with both. With tafkhim and tarqiq. Alright. So these are the three groupings. The first one has 8 scenarios. where ra can be recited with tafkhim. There's going to be 8 cases for that. We're going to go into that. The second one, there are 4 cases of that. And this third scenario, there are 2 cases of this, totaling into 14 scenarios. So a total of 14 scenarios of how ra can come in the Quran, and 8 of them are going to be tafkhim, 4 of them are going to be tarqiq, 2 of them you have a choice. There are some preferences even with these, but it's up to you. So we are going to focus on this one. If we finish, then we'll move on, inshallah. So, do you guys have this? Can I erase this, inshallah? Yes. Sisters, you guys have it? All right. That is the breakdown. 14 scenarios. I should have just kept the rules of ra. Whatever. I'll write it again. The rules of ra. All right. So now, those scenarios where tafkhim is done. Cases of tafkhim. There's 8 of these. Number 1. This is where ra has a fatha. If ra is maftuh means it has a fatha, it will be pronounced and recited with a full mouth, or what we call with tafkhim. For instance, Ramadan, Ramadan. So this ra is full mouth and the dad is full mouth, the meme is not. Another scenario where you should be careful. So you shouldn't say Ramadan, ma, because ma is full mouth. So you go from ra, ma, dan, Ramadan, Ramadan. Ra and dad are full mouth. But here we're focusing on the ra. Ra will be full mouth in this situation. No problem. So this is full mouth. Ramadan. So anytime you get a ra maftuh, ra with a fatha, you're going to recite that ra with a full mouth. Number 2. When ra is sakin and preceded with the fatha. Alright? It says when it is sakina and preceded by a letter with a fatha. Right? But this is just simply put. Example. Let's take use of other colors here. Example. Maryam. So the ra in Maryam is sakin. It is preceded by a fatha. The letter before it has a fatha. If that's the case, ra sakin before it is a fatha, then we're talking about ra is going to be full mouth, not the meme. So this is another place where a lot of people transfer the tafkhim onto the previous letter. So most people, they'll say Maryam, focusing on the ra, so then they are negligent of the previous letter. Say Maryam. It's actually Maryam. So when you're reading Maryam, ensure the meme remains mustafila. This is tarqiq. This one is tafkhim. Maryam. All right, so that's situation number 2. Then we have number 3. All right, and that is similar. When ra is sakin and preceded by a sakin. And then here we add a caveat, other than ya. And that is preceded by a fatha. Which is preceded by a fatha. Okay, so what does this mean? It means you got a ra sakin. Before it is a letter that is sakin. Before that letter is a letter that has a fatha. So you got ra sakin, then a sakin, then a fatha. But that one that's behind, that's before the ra, it cannot be a ya. That is a condition, because we'll talk about that later. So an example of this. والعصر والعصر. So your ra is sakin. Before the ra is a sad sakin. Before the sad sakin, there's a fatha. In such a situation, you will pronounce the ra. So some people, they just don't pronounce the ra. They say wal as. It's not wal as, because that's just wal as. It's not wal as. Wal asr. Wal asr. So you transition from the sad to the ra. You should be able to hear it. Wal asr. And it's not wal asr. Wal asr. R is empty mouth, and is full mouth. Wal asr. Instead of wal asr. Right. So that is number 3. Number 4. When ra has a dhamma. Okay. For instance, kafaru. So ru instead of kafaru. Kafaru is empty mouth. Kafaru is full mouth. So you have to purse the lips, like I mentioned before, and the tongue is thickened when you pronounce the ra. Kafaru, ru. Ru versus ru. Ru is empty mouth, ru is full mouth. So this one is kind of like this one, and then we're gonna have 2 more with the dhamma, like how we had 2 more with the fatha. Number 5. When ra has sakin and it is preceded by a letter with a dhamma. So similar to this, but with the dhamma. And preceded by a dhamma. Okay. Example, al-Qur'an. Qur'an. So in the word Qur'an, Ra is sakin. Before the Ra, there's a Qaf with a Dhamma. So this is a Ra sakin preceded by a Dhamma. So that Ra is going to be full mouth. Al-Qur, Qur'an. Not Qur. Qur'an is empty mouth. More full mouth. Qur'an. And we haven't done the attribute of Ra, which is takreer. But takreer means that there should be a roll in the Ra, but just one roll, not more than that. Qur'an. So it's not Qur'an. That's like three rolls. Qur'an. Three rolls in my tongue. It's supposed to be just one. Qur'an. Right, so that is going to be full mouth. And then number 6. When Ra is sakin, preceded by a sakin, and that is preceded by a dhamma. So similar to this one, except it's with a dhamma instead of a fatha. Okay. Ra sakin, before it is another sakin, before that is a dhamma. Example. These are from Surah Al-Asr. These do have a harakah. This Ra does have a harakah. Anyone know what is the harakah here? Kasra. Wal-asri innal insan. There's a kasra, but if you stop here, most people, wal-asr, they'll stop. If you stop, it becomes a sakin. Same thing, khusr. If you there's a harakah on it, but if you stop, it becomes a sakin. Because anywhere you do waqf or you stop, it turns into a sakin. So this is pronounced khusar, sa. Ensure you don't turn this one into a sad, so it's not khusar, sa. It's khusar, sa. You don't want to make it a fatha either, khusar. You do have to transition, but not so much where this becomes a fatha. Khusar. Okay, so ra sakin preceded by a sakin, preceded by a dhamma. These are all full mouth. Now I'm going to have to erase what's on the board so I can write the last two, inshallah. Doesn't seem like anyone needs time to write it. The sister's fine? All right. I'm going to erase all of these, inshallah, to do number 7 and number 8. That will conclude all of the tafkhim ras. Number 7. When ra is sakin and preceded by a temporary kasra. I'll explain what that is. Okay. Temporary kasra. All right, so 2 examples he gives. So let's put the harakas on these. All right. So what's happening in these two examples? These are two different examples. This is what we call a kasra arida, a temporary kasra. Why is it a temporary kasra? Is because it falls away if you're connecting it with something else, and it's not part of the actual the root letters. So the root letters of this, you'd have to know Arabic, is ra, jim, ain, raja'a, and that id, it's only there so you can pronounce the ra. It helps you pronounce it. In this situation as well, if this alladhi is not there, it would be irtalda. The actual root letters is ra, da, dia. So that kasra is only there so that you can pronounce this ra. Right? It's the kasra is only there. So if this alladhi wasn't there, it would be irtalda, irtalda. Because these are what you call commands, like sighatu amr, you'd have to know some Arabic. That kasra there is only to help you pronounce that ra sakin. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to pronounce ra sakin. So in Arabic, it's called a kasra arida, temporary kasra, just so that you can pronounce the ra. How will you know where the temporary kasras are? You'd have to know Arabic, and if you don't, there's not too many. So in the Tajwid books, they will mention where these places are. Yeah. And they are those that if you are reading something before it, you won't pronounce it. Like if you're saying there's a fatha here, some letter which is a fatha, it will be al-ji'u. You wouldn't even read the kasra, right? And this one is already kasra, but if it feels like thou talba, you wouldn't even read that kasra there. So this is called a kasra arida, a temporary kasra. When you have a word with a temporary kasra, or rather I should say when you have a ra sakin preceded by a temporary kasra, you don't read this empty mouth, you read it full mouth. Whereas normally if you got a ra sakin preceded by a kasra, we didn't do tarqiq yet, that's one of the instances of tarqiq. So irji'u, like at the end of, is it Surah Al-Fajr? Irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan marudiyah. Irji'i. It's not irji'i. Normally, according to principle, it would be irji'i, but because it's a temporary kasra, would say irji'i, ir, and irji'u, alladhir, dhir, tada. So it's not alladhir. Dhir tada is empty mouth, tarqiq. You have to make it tafkhim. الذير الذير تضى ذير versus ذير. This is not irji'u, it's irji'u. Okay, so that's kasra arida. That is, it's usually going to be in commandments. You have a command, like you have a, if you know Arabic, the first of the three root letters, if it's a ra, and you make a command form of that, is it called imperative in English? What is commands called in English grammar? Anyway, the command form of it, then you have to put a kasra before it. That's just Arabic grammar. That kasra is temporary. It's not real part of the original huruf. So they're limited spots as you're reading. If we come across them, then I will point them out to you, but you'll know why we're doing that. All right. And number 8. When the ra has a sukun, it's sakin, and it's preceded by a letter with a kasra, and followed by a musta'li letter with no kasra, and it's in the same word. So save the best for last, right? So there's a few things here. So when ra is sakin, the sisters can help. I don't know what that is. I don't think so. He's not still here. And followed by a musta'ali letter. Let's see here. Yeah. Followed by a musta'ali letter. You could say, yeah, musta'ali. That's the term that I've been using. Musta'ali letter. All right. So this thing, there's a few things here. Number one, ra is sakin, and before the ra, there's a letter with a kasra, and after the ra, followed by means after the ra, there is a musta'ali letter. What are the musta'ali letters? Khusadat tanqid. And that musta'ali letter doesn't have a kasra. And all of this is in the same word. So kind of like 5 different things here. Right? So you got a ra sakin. Before the ra sakin, there's a letter with a kasra. After the ra sakin, there's a musta'ali letter, but the musta'ali letter doesn't have a kasra. And all of this is in the same word. So there's only, I think, 3 examples of this in the Quran. No, there's more, I think, more examples, but he only gives 3 here. Firqatin. Okay. So now take a look at the examples. Ra is sakin. Qirtas, irsad, firqa, firqa. So ra is sakin. Before the ra, there is a kasra. So kasra, 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 the fa kasra, hamza maksur, qaf maksur. After the ra, followed by musta'ali letter. This is the musta'ali letter. Ta, sa, qa. That musta'ali letter is not maksur. So we're gonna do in the ones where you have a choice between the two, where if it was to be maksur, the musta'ali letter, you'd have a choice between tafkhim or tarqiq. But here there's no choice, it's just tafkhim. That doesn't have a kasra, and it's all in the same word. It's one word. So again, you got a ra sakin. Before the ra sakin is a kasra. After the ra sakin is a musta'ali letter that's not maksur, and it's all in the same word. In this situation, it is compulsory to do tafkhim, and it'll sound like qir, qirtas, irsad, firqa. Yes? Does anyone have a question? Yes. It's the thickness that is produced at the back of the tongue. That is the attribute of isti'la. So with all of khusadatin qil, at all times there is a level of thickness in the back of the tongue. Right. So let's say after the makhraj of kaf, that location, like more forward than the makhraj of kaf, there's that big chunk of the tongue that gets thick or not. If you say qa or ta or sa, that the difference between sa and sa, there's that thickness in that region. So that is what is happening with the ra as well. Qir, qirtas, ir, irsad, firqa. No, the tip of the tongue does touch the same place, but you could imagine it being more like in a cup shape, right? It's still touching that same location. So, for instance, if I was just to say ri, khayri, ghayri, ri, it sounds kind of like if anyone knows Urdu, they have this letter in Urdu. Oh no, I just ruined the carpet. There's a letter like this in Urdu. Anyone seen that? Seen it? Yeah, in Urdu. And there's a dal like that. This is a da, and this is a ra. Like, when you say Allah sabse bada hai, bada. You wouldn't say bara or bara. It's bada. It's a mixture. It's like a dal and a ra together. It's not exact. Arabic doesn't have this. So this is just to show you that there are even further levels of that. But the ra in Arabic, it does flicker on the top in the roof of the mouth. So that'll still happen here with an added thickness. Qir, qir. So there's still a flicker of the tongue onto the top of the roof of the mouth, but there's a thickness of the tongue as well. So qir, 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 qir. So you can hear some sort of bounce, qir, qir. But it's not, like I mentioned, it's only one time, it's not multiple. If I wanted to do multiples, I would be able to do so. Ir, irsad, qir, qirtas, qir, qirqa. But I only do one of them. Irsad, qirqa. Right, so there has to be one roll, if you will. So that's the attribute of takrir. Anyway, that's our time for tonight. Any other questions? Everyone understand the different ones? This one is tough. And you'll see different variations of this where it will be, there'll be that option between tafkhim and tarqiq. We'll do that next time, inshallah. So we have the 4 different conditions of tarqiq, and then 2 different conditions where both are permissible. So we've done the 8, alhamdulillah. Try to keep this in mind as we move on, inshallah. So ra, out of the 3, alif, lam, and ra, it has the most ahkam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to recite the Quran in the proper manner, the way it was revealed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وصلى الله تبارك وتعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.